Welcome to another deep dive with us. This time, we're going to be exploring Quantum Touch 2.0, QT2 for short. We'll be looking at excerpts from Richard Gordon's book, Quantum Touch 2.0, The New Human.
Yeah, this should be fun.
This book lays out, it claims to unlock these, healing powers within us that just sound almost too good to be true.
Right.
But that's why we're here, right?
Yeah,
To dig into these fascinating and sometimes outlandish ideas.
absolutely. And what makes this deep dive, I think, so compelling is that Gordon isn't just offering kind of like feel-good theories. He lays out specific techniques and provides what he claims to be anecdotal evidence that suggests that QT2 could revolutionize our approach to healing.
Right. He makes some very bold claims. So let's start with the foundation. What exactly is QT2 and how does it supposedly work?
So at its core, QT2 utilizes what Gordon calls heart energy. It's a blend of like focused intention, love, and breath work to promote healing in oneself and others. And it suggests that this energy isn't bound by physical limitations, like distance or touch. So like imagine a world where you could send healing energy to someone miles away and it actually worked.
Okay. I'm trying to wrap my head around that. So it's not about physically manipulating the body. It's about this heart energy influencing the person's system somehow.
Precisely. And that's where things get really interesting. QT2 posits that our consciousness, specifically when channeled through this heart energy, can directly impact the physical world. This challenges kind of like conventional scientific models that view consciousness as like a product of the brain.
Yeah, that's a pretty radical departure from mainstream science. But before we get too deep into the theoretical implications, talk about some of the specific examples Gordon uses to support his claims.
Sure, so one that stands out to me is the story of Julius the cat. He had been really lethargic for weeks, and vets couldn't figure out the cause. But after a QT2 session, Julius was suddenly full of energy, like more lively than ever before.
Right. It's like a heartwarming animal movie montage where the once sluggish pet is suddenly leaping and bounding with joy. But my skeptical side can't help but wonder, was it really the QT2 that caused this change? Or could there have been other factors at play?
Right, and that's a great question. And I think it's important to approach these anecdotes with a healthy dose of critical thinking. We need to consider things like the placebo effect, environmental changes, or even the possibility of spontaneous remission.
So how do we reconcile those possibilities with the claims of QT2?
Well, that's where the need for scientific rigor comes in. Anecdotal evidence, while compelling, doesn't constitute scientific proof. It's important to recognize that there's a difference between correlation and causation. Just because Julius perked up after a QT2 session doesn't necessarily mean that the QT2 was the sole or even primary cause.
Right. Okay, fair enough. So what about those incredible structural adjustments Gordon describes? He claims to have aligned the hips of an entire audience using QT2. I mean, that's a pretty dramatic claim.
It is. And to understand how this supposedly works, we need to delve a bit into anatomy. Gordon focuses on the sphenoid bone, which is located deep within the skull, and its relationship to the occiput, the bone at the base of the skull.
Yeah.
He suggests that these bones are often misaligned, creating a core distortion that impacts the entire body.
So he's saying that by adjusting these bones energetically, you can realign the whole skeletal structure.
That's precisely his claim. And while QT2 practitioners may observe and report tangible results from a scientific perspective, it's crucial to question whether such energetic manipulation can truly impact bone alignment. Our current understanding of skeletal structure suggests the bones are held in place by ligaments and muscles.
Right, which would mean that any lasting structural change would require more than just energy work, right? You need to address the physical components as well. It seems like there's a gap between what QT2 proposes and what we currently understand about the human body.
Exactly. And that's where the call for scientific investigation becomes essential. We need rigorous studies using imaging techniques like X-rays and MRIs to assess whether QT2 can actually produce measurable changes in bone alignment.
Okay. All right, so let's shift gears a bit. Gordon also talks about this concept of the new human, someone who kind of embraces QT2 and unlocks their full healing potential. It almost feels like he's suggesting a kind of evolutionary leap where we tap into abilities that were previously dormant or dismissed as supernatural.
That's a great observation. And this idea of the new human connects to like a broader theme running through the book. The idea that we are far more capable than we realize, that our consciousness has the power to influence reality in ways that we haven't even begun to explore.
It's definitely a captivating idea. But speaking of pushing the boundaries of what's possible, let's talk about one of the most kind of mind-bending concepts in the book, healing across time.
You're referring to the story about Gordon sending healing energy back in time to address his kitten's neediness.
Yes. I mean, sending healing energy to someone miles away is one thing, but sending it back in time? That's a whole other level. Are we talking about time travel
Well,
here?
it depends on how you interpret the concept of time. QT2 suggests that time isn't necessarily linear as we perceive it. It proposes that we can access and influence past moments energetically.
So he's not talking about physically going back in time, but rather sending energy to a past version of his kitten.
Precisely. And the book goes even further, suggesting that we can use similar techniques to address past traumas in ourselves. There's an exercise called Hold the Baby, where you visualize your younger self and send healing energy to that past version of you.
Okay, I'm trying to reconcile this concept with my understanding of physics. It seems like we're venturing into uncharted territory here.
We definitely are. And while the idea of influencing the past might seem far-fetched, it's important to remember that our understanding of time and consciousness is still evolving.
So we're left with more questions than answers at this point, which is fine. That's what makes these deep dives so fascinating. We're exploring the edges of what we know, challenging our assumptions.
And opening ourselves up to new possibilities.
Exactly. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. We've only just begun to scratch the surface of QT2 and its potential applications. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll delve deeper into the specific techniques, like using icons to focus energy, and explore those ethical considerations you mentioned earlier.
I'm definitely intrigued to hear more, especially about those icons. What exactly are they and how do they work?
We'll hold that thought. We'll unpack all of that and more after a quick break. Sounds good. All right, so let's jump back into our exploration of QT2. Before we went on that tangent about time travel, we were talking about the new human concept and the potential for this technique to revolutionize healing. But we also have to acknowledge that some of these claims, especially the more extraordinary ones, haven't been scientifically validated.
Right, that's a crucial point. While QT2 enthusiasts might point to anecdotal evidence, rigorous scientific testing is needed to really separate genuine effects from placebo responses or spontaneous remission or other factors.
So how do we navigate that space between compelling anecdotes and the need for scientific proof? Where do we draw the line between open-mindedness and healthy skepticism?
It's a balancing act for sure. Well, it's tempting to get kind of swept up in the possibilities, especially when we're dealing with something. As fundamental as healing, it's crucial to maintain a critical perspective. We can be open to exploring new ideas without blindly accepting every claim.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's say I'm willing to entertain the possibility of QT2, at least for the sake of this deep dive. Are there any areas where its application is being taken more seriously, or where the potential benefits seem more plausible?
Yeah, one area that comes to mind is pain management. The book dedicates a significant portion to outlining techniques for addressing various types of pain, from acute injuries to chronic conditions. Gordon emphasizes the speed and effectiveness of QT2, claiming that relief can often be achieved in minutes without even physical contact.
I remember him describing his work with the basketball team at UC Santa Cruz. He claims to have significantly reduced their pain levels using QT2. But pain is such a complex phenomenon, influenced by physical, emotional, and even psychological factors. Can simply directing heart energy really address all of that?
That's a valid question. And this is where the lack of scientific research becomes a real sticking point. We need studies that go beyond anecdotal evidence to assess the true efficacy of QT2 in pain management. Ideally, these studies would compare QT2 to other established methods like medication or physical therapy.
It would be fascinating to see those results. Imagine if QT2 proved to be like a viable alternative to opioids for chronic pain management, for example. That would be a game changer.
It would indeed. But until we have that kind of research, it's important to remain cautiously optimistic. The potential is there, but we need solid evidence to support these claims.
All right, so pain management is one area where QT2 might hold some promise.
What about those structural adjustments Gordon keeps mentioning? I'm still trying to wrap my head around the idea that he adjusted the hips of an entire audience simply using energy.
It's definitely one of the more dramatic anecdotes in the book. And to understand how Gordon explains this, we need to revisit those key bones in the skull, the sphenoid and the occiput. He suggests that misalignment between these bones creates a ripple effect throughout the body, affecting posture and alignment. QT2 aims to correct that misalignment, leading to structural changes. But can energy work actually move bones? Our skeletons are pretty solid structures, held together by ligaments and muscles. It seems like you'd need to address those physical components to achieve any lasting structural change.
That's a very valid point. And this highlights a potential area of conflict
Yeah.
between QT2 and our current understanding of anatomy and biomechanics. While QT2 practitioners might observe changes in posture or range of motion, scientific validation would require demonstrating measurable shifts in bone position using imaging techniques like X-rays.
So again, it comes back to the need for rigorous research
Yeah.
to bridge the gap between anecdotal evidence and scientific proof. But even if we set aside those extraordinary claims for a moment, I'm still curious about the idea of using QT2 to work with specific organs and systems within the body.
That's another fascinating application explored in the book. Gordon suggests that QT2 can be used to address imbalances and support healing in various organs, from the thyroid to the liver to the kidneys. He even delves into the anatomy and physiology of these organs, outlining how heart energy can supposedly influence their function.
It's almost like he's presenting an energetic approach to anatomy and physiology. But how does that align with our current understanding of these systems?
Well, QT2 doesn't necessarily contradict conventional medicine, but it offers a different lens through which to view health and healing. It suggests that energy plays a fundamental role in how our bodies function, and that imbalances in this energy can manifest as physical or emotional issues.
So it's not about replacing traditional medical treatments, but rather complementing them with this energetic approach.
That seems to be the idea, and there are interesting parallels between QT2 and traditional healing systems, like traditional Chinese medicine, which also emphasizes the flow of energy within the body.
I can see how those concepts might intertwine.
Hmm.
But even if we accept the idea that energy influences our health, how do we know that QT2 is the most effective way to manipulate that energy? I mean, there are countless energy healing modalities out there.
That's a great question. And it speaks to the need for comparative studies that examine the effectiveness of different energy healing techniques. We need to move beyond isolated anecdotes and explore these modalities within a broader scientific context.
It's like we're standing at the edge of a vast unexplored territory. There's so much potential for discovery and understanding, but we need the tools of scientific inquiry to guide our exploration.
I couldn't agree more. And that sense of venturing into the unknown is what makes this deep dive so captivating. We're grappling with big questions, challenging established paradigms, and considering possibilities that might have seemed unimaginable just a few decades ago.
Speaking of unimaginable possibilities, I'm still reeling from the concept of healing across time, sending energy to the past to heal a younger version of yourself. It's mind-boggling.
It certainly challenges our linear perception of time. But if we entertain the possibility even for a moment, it raises fascinating questions about the nature of consciousness and our relationship to the past.
I'm eager to explore that concept further. Along with those icons you mentioned earlier, they sound like powerful tools for focusing and directing energy.
We do, and we'll delve into those, along with other intriguing aspects of QT2, in the final part of our deep dive.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of QT2. We've covered a lot of ground, from the basic principles of heart energy to the mind-bending concept of healing across time. And now I think it's time to tackle those fascinating icons we keep mentioning. They sound like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
They do have a futuristic feel to them. But in the context of QT2, icons are simply personalized symbols or images used to focus and direct heart energy.
So instead of just sending out like a general wave of healing energy, you're using these icons as a kind of lens to focus that energy on a specific intention or outcome.
Exactly. Think of it like using a magnifying glass to focus sunlight. You're amplifying the energy and directing it with greater precision.
Okay, that makes sense. So what kinds of icons are we talking about? Are they like ancient symbols or something?
They can be anything that holds personal meaning. For the practitioner, it could be a geometric shape, a color, a word, even a mental image. The key is that the icon represents a clear intention for healing or transformation.
So if I wanted to use QT2 to address a specific issue, like let's say a sore knee, I would create an icon that represents healing for my knee.
Precisely. You would focus on that icon while cultivating heart energy, and then direct that energy towards your knee with the intention of healing.
All right, I'm starting to get the picture. But Gordon also mentions these subroutines that can be added to icons. What exactly are those, and how do they work?
So subroutines are like modifiers or specifications
Yeah.
that add another layer of intention to the icon. It's as if you're programming your healing energy with greater detail and nuance.
So let's say I'm working with that Sorny icon. Could I add a subroutine to specify that I want to reduce inflammation?
That's the idea. You're essentially fine-tuning the energetic signal to address the specific issue you want to target. It's like adding code to a computer program to achieve a desired outcome.
Wow, this is getting pretty complex. It's like we're layering intention upon intention to create this highly specific, energetic message.
That's a great way to put it. And this level of intentionality is a key element of QT2. It's not about passively sending out energy. It's about actively shaping and directing that energy with a clear purpose.
All right, so we've got icons and subroutines. What other tools or techniques does QT2 offer?
Well, we have to talk about one of the most controversial concepts in the book, sharing gifts. This is where QT2 ventures into the realm of what some might call superpowers.
Right. I remember you mentioning this earlier. It's the idea that you can transfer abilities or knowledge from one person to another using heart energy.
That's right. Gordon provides an example of a gift exchange involving perfect recall. He claims to have facilitated the transfer of this ability from one person to another using QT2.
Okay. Now that's where my skepticism really kicks in. Are we talking about actual mind reading or telepathy here? It sounds like something out of a science fiction novel.
It does sound far-fetched, doesn't it? And it's important to approach these claims with a critical eye, while QT2 proponents might suggest that we're tapping into a deeper level of interconnected consciousness. There's no scientific evidence to support the notion of transferring abilities or knowledge in this way.
But even if we entertain the possibility for a moment, wouldn't there be ethical considerations? I mean, what if someone's negative traits or vulnerabilities were transferred, along with their positive abilities?
That's a crucial question, and it's something that QT2 practitioners need to consider carefully if we're dealing with the potential. To manipulate consciousness in such profound ways, we need to proceed with caution and a deep understanding of the potential risks and consequences.
It's like opening Pandora's box, isn't it? Once you unleash those possibilities, it's hard to predict where they might lead.
Exactly. And that's why it's essential to ground these explorations in a strong ethical framework. We need to ask ourselves not just, can we do this, but should we do this?
That's a powerful point, it seems like with every step we take. Into this world of QT2, we encounter more questions than answers. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, right?
Not at all. It's a sense of wonder and inquiry that drives scientific exploration and expands our understanding of ourselves and the universe.
So where does this deep dive into QT2 leave us? What are the key takeaways?
Well, I think we've learned that QT2 offers a unique perspective on healing, one that emphasizes the power of heart energy and intention. It provides tools and techniques that some individuals might find beneficial, particularly in areas like pain management and stress reduction.
But we also have to acknowledge that many of the claims, especially those involving structural adjustments, healing across time, and sharing gifts, lack scientific validation.
Absolutely. It's crucial to approach these claims with a healthy dose of skepticism and to seek evidence-based information when making decisions about our health and well-being.
But even if we don't fully embrace the more extraordinary aspects of QT2, I think there's something valuable in exploring these concepts and challenging our assumptions about what's possible and opening ourselves up to new ways of understanding the human experience.
I agree. At the very least, QT2 invites us to consider the profound connection between our minds, our bodies, and the world around us. It reminds us of the power of intention and the potential for healing that exists within each of us.
And that's a message worth pondering, even if we don't have all the answers. So to our listeners, we encourage you to continue exploring, to ask questions, and to approach these ideas with an open mind and a discerning heart.
Who knows? Maybe somewhere within these uncharted territories of healing and consciousness, we'll discover something truly transformative.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Quantum Touch 2.0. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep an open heart.
Did you get any of that?